Senator Paul.
We've discussed a little bit of labor force shortages, and, I'm a Republican who is for more lawful immigration, so I think that can be part of the answer. I do think there are certain aspects of the labor force shortage, though, that are perplexing. The argument's been made that the artificial stimulus of government spending and, the creation of new money by the Federal Reserve is part of it. It's created this enormous amount of demand, and that's part of labor force shortage. The only problem with that argument is we still haven't got back to the actual physical number of where we were before the pandemic. Now, the government did really disrupt. We've never had a $20 trillion economy just closed and then reopened. So there's enormous dislocations. It's not only ours, with most of the world closed down, then reopened. But the other argument is that maybe it's an underuse, or that maybe we've deterred people from work. And quantifying those and making arguments for which is the case, that we have so much artificial demand that we just can't keep up with the workers because of the artificial demand, versus labor force that's not working. So we have labor force participation that's about 62% or so, and people say it's going down. The remaining 38% I'm interested in, does that include people that are disabled or can't work? Or when you do labor force participation, we'll start with Ms. Grensler. Are those people able to work, the 38% that are not in the labor force? 62% are participating, 38 aren't. Who are the 38%?
Yes, it can include those people that are not in the labor force. Part of that could be disability. Most of them are able to work. I've been digging into the numbers and trying to figure out who is it that is not coming back to the labor force. A particularly troubling part is that it seems to be the 20 to 24-year-old age group. The drop in employment is actually bigger than the net drop in employment for all workers. That's when people should be at their greatest opportunity. Like, they can have all the potential in the world there, and they're not attending college in greater degree either. The college enrollment rates have declined. So that's a particularly troubling part of it. A narrative that is out there is that it's mostly women, especially women with younger children, who have been disproportionately impacted. And absolutely, childcare is a struggle. I have 6 young kids and went through COVID, and it was not easy to work with them all at home many times. But there have been some studies, multiple ones, including by Jason Furman, President Obama's former CEA chair, Claudia Golden, and they basically found, yes, it was a struggle, but women pushed through, and it actually did not cause their employment to decline. I've been looking at this, and only 16% of the current gap in employment is parents with children. That includes men and women. And so I don't think that that is the big part there, and we don't need to be enacting a big new entitlement that would drive up those costs of childcare, but there are ways that we can help childcare become more accessible and affordable, and also have the types of jobs that work for women, that work for caregivers, that work for people at the older end of the age spectrum, that are particularly appealing to younger workers, and that's the independent contracting, the freelancing. We should not be shutting those opportunities out.
Did you say you have 6 young children?
Well, 4 to 14, so if you consider them all young.
6. Yeah, my sister has 6. She's an OBGYN, so I know what it's like to have a working sister with 6 also, so that's a big deal. When you look at this also, one of the things we talked about was, we were quite concerned, at least on our side, of adding the $600 extra in unemployment. And that expired back in September, and we thought, well, people will go back to work. And the worrisome thing is did we change behavior so much that some of them didn't go back to work? Or some of them working for cash on the side? Are they taking government money and working on the side? And you do hear stories of that, the people who are taking a little bit less from the government than they're driving somewhere for cash, in another city or something, not being reported. Mr. Falkender, or Dr. Falkender, your response sort of to the previous question, labor shortage in general, getting rid of the unemployment add-on, and why we still have a shortage.
Right. So the other significant segment of missing workers are those in their 60s. So there is a early retirement that's going on, and this is why potentially some of the penalties of Social Security should perhaps be revisited, because that's also a significant portion of the missing segment of the labor force. So the technical answer to your question is we can look at different segments of the adult population, and prime labor force participation has mostly come back. It's still only about a 0.5 percentage point below where it was prior to the pandemic. It's the older workers, so prime is 25 to 54. It's above that where we're seeing not a recovery. And so how much of that is extra concern about COVID versus how much of it is the savings that they accumulated, the run up in their retirement portfolio facilitated them leaving, but also some of the penalties associated with Social Security, associated with taking Social Security and working at the same time. Unfortunately, the high levels of inflation we're seeing may push some of those people back into the labor force, but I don't think that's why we want them back in.
If I could just add that eliminating the retirement earnings test would not cost anything. It's actually just kind of a misperceived tax. You get the money back later on, so it would actually be pro-growth and improve Social Security's finances.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Cardin, Ranking Member Paul. Thank you to our witnesses today. I have heard from a number of business